member forum. Today we are going to be, Kristen White is going to be with Fisher Phillips, is going to share with us some updates on OSHA, probably a couple of other things that are still rolling into 2023. I have some legislative updates, some event-related updates, and then we really want to open it up for Q&A to hear from you. Questions that you might have for about IEC for 2023 or about the industry. Just want to get some feedback from you in the last few minutes of this meeting. And so, Kristen, if you are ready, I will turn this over to you for OSHA updates and anything else that is top of mind from a labor and employment or legal standpoint.
No, sounds good. Thanks, Marilyn. Good morning, everyone. So today doing an OSHA update. If some of you get our alerts that go out, oh, sorry, I'm turning that off. You would have seen some articles we've put out on this, but essentially what OSHA has put out is kind of what they're calling an aggressive enforcement strategy. And it doesn't officially go into effect until March, because once they put it out, they've got 60 days before it goes into effect. But essentially, and we'll go through what the strategy is, but essentially what it could lead to is higher penalties and what those look like. And let me pull up really quick the new OSHA maximum penalties for 2023, because if you remember, they go up every year now. So I'll make sure I've got those here. Okay. So the first one is that OSHA, and this is coming from federal OSHA, so Colorado, so not your state plans. So coming from the federal side is that they're reminding area directors that they can issue instance by instance citations. And what that means is that, and the easiest example is like a machine guarding issue. So if you have, 5 machines and they've all got the same guarding issue, either the guardings are removed or it's not on correctly. You could think about it with, the machines like, the welding machines, or the ones where you just have the little guard that, you have to move to like 1/8 of an inch, and they always catch people at the wrong distance. So OSHA is saying that for those citations, it used to be that what OSHA would do is they would say, okay, if all 5 machines are wrong, we're going to issue you 1 machine guarding citation, and we're going to put all the machines together. So OSHA has what's called an instance by instance citation policy, where what they can do is they can issue you a separate citation for every single machine. And, so then you're looking at, 5 citations, not just 1 citation for this error. And this has happened in the past. This is not a new policy. I don't want you to think this is something that they've never done. We actually had a case we mediated last fall. They call them egregious cases, where they came in and they have all these turntable machines. They were all wrong, and they issued 15 citations for the same hazard on all the machines. So they can do it and have done in the past. But essentially what OSHA is trying to do is encourage area directors to use this more frequently. And they're looking at it in high hazard industries, which OSHA defines as those that would be like lockout tagout issues, machine guarding, permit required confined space, respiratory protection, falls, trenching, and record keeping if it's a serious issue. So, that groups construction right in there, right? That's, you're looking at from a lockout tagout standpoint, if your guys are working, I'm just thinking from an electrical standpoint on a circuit and they don't have it properly locked out, that could be one of the instances where they could try to say, okay, did we have more than one of these violations? And we could cite them separately, which is going to obviously drive the penalties. Permit required confined space. So if your guys are doing any work in confined spaces, that's going to trigger it. Respiratory protection. So if you're doing work where you've got to wear respirators, falls, you're doing work at heights. And then I assume most of you are not probably doing trenching work. So just keep that in mind that, it's going to hit the construction industry. Even though, like I said, machine guarding is where we've seen it used mostly in the past. But that's something that I think we'll see more of. Let's see here. One of the times that they use those is that if the employer has got, willful or repeat violation. So if it has occurred in the past, and remember, your violations stay on your record for 5 years now. If they find that there's been a failure to report a fatality, hospitalization, or an amputation, if there's been a fatality, so if you have a fatality at the work site and they find one of what they consider a high hazard violation, that's when they're going to look to issue these instance by instance. And then the record keeping is if they have an injury that occurred as a result of a serious hazard. So that's pretty broad. So if they would come in and find that you're not properly recording injury and illnesses from serious hazards, that they'd go through and try to cite you instance by instance. I've not seen that in practice before. We don't see a lot of record keeping audits, so that's something we'll have to keep an eye on. But that's how they would use it. Any questions just about that instance by instance? I mean, hopefully none of you have seen that in practice because it does quite walk people pretty good. The other part that they're looking at is, and this is if you've ever had citations from OSHA, you're probably familiar with grouping. You hear that a lot. Essentially what that means is that OSHA would take two separate violations and they group them and hit you for one penalty. So I always explain to employers, you're still, if you take that, you're still taking two violations on your record. So just keep that in, you have to keep that in mind, that it's not just one violation going on your history record, it is two violations going on your history. But you're taking it for one penalty. So what the new guidance is telling area directors is they're encouraging them not to always group citations for penalty purposes, because you can imagine that's going to double, triple the penalties that are coming out. And the maximum this year, it goes up every year with inflation. This year it went up. Hold on one second. I'm going to shut that blind for just a second, Marilyn. It is blinding me. Hold on one second.
It's funny, Kristen, because I was like, she's awfully like illuminated over there today.
I was like glowing this morning. Yeah. So I had the way the sun was coming in was catching me. You might remember that during the Trump administration, when the budget was passed, one of the last things that were put in one of those monster bills was that OSHA penalties would now go up every year with inflation. So I always tell people, we always blame the Democrats because our, the safety things go up. I said, well, this was actually one that came out under the Republicans, that is going up every year. So this year with inflation, it went up 7.7%, which is a huge jump. So a maximum for a serious or an other than serious violation is $15,625. A willful or repeat is now up to $156,259. So just over $156,000. So, you got to think about, goodness, 15 years ago, you would get a serious citation. It maybe cost you $5,000. They would group it together and you'd have one penalty and there'd be this idea of we'll pay it and move on. Now that one penalty could be, $15,000. And if we don't group it, you're looking at $30,000 or $45,000. So, it's really changing, I think the safety landscape as far as this attitude of should we just pay and move on, because the penalties are really starting to get pretty punitive. So just keep that in mind. Those are, two things that OSHA has always been able to do or not do. It's really the area director discretion. But the federal office is encouraging area directors to look at ways to increase penalties. So, you got to imagine there is political pressure going on in the background on those. The last one I want to mention that we've seen, and this is a new one. So OSHA has put out notice that they intend to adopt a regulation in June addressing the use of subpoenas during OSHA investigations. And currently there's no draft of this proposed regulation. So this is, what we're kind of hearing through the grapevine is going to come out in June. And OSHA is proposing it as an interim final rule. And the reason that's important is that means that it's going to take effect before there's notice and comment rulemaking. So most of you will remember, goodness, for the silica in construction rule or, confined space in construction, how long did it take them to get that out, right? And then we had the silica rule, and goodness, that took like 6 years to get out. So notice and comment rulemaking is a long process. But here, by putting it out as an interim final rule, it will take effect while they gather public comment. So similar to what we saw during COVID. So it'll be interesting because typically these interim final rules are only used when they say it's time sensitive, right? So that made sense during COVID times, when they're putting out the rule that eventually was struck down. So it'll be interesting for the time sensitive situation. All we've heard so far from OSHA is that they're pointing to what they're calling reoccurrent issues that are leading to time-consuming disputes between the agency and employers on obtaining documents or interviews. Most of you probably know, if you've ever dealt with OSHA, that, they usually start the process with, hey, will you give us these documents? Can we talk to, Jerry? What does this look like? Without using subpoenas. Now there does, I've had inspections that, we've had to push back, and we've had subpoena battles because OSHA does have subpoena power, meaning they have the right to issue what's called an administrative subpoena to force, typically managers, they don't usually do it with hourly people, but force you to come and talk to them, force you to give them the documents. Now you can object to administrative subpoena, and they'd have to go to court to have a judge actually order you to do it. And we've had to fight those battles in the past. So this is interesting that they want to put out a rule about their subpoena, use of subpoenas. So it's making me wonder if we are going to start seeing a more aggressive use of subpoenas when they make document request or interview request. Like I said, we haven't seen the language yet. We won't see it likely until, shortly before it comes out, or when it comes out in June. That's the anticipated date. But, it kind of goes along with these increased aggressive efforts to kind of amp up enforcement and inspection. So just putting you on notice that there may be some more changes coming down. So Marilyn, I'll kind of stop there as well and see if anyone's got questions about these issues before moving on. And feel free just to unmute or come on and ask.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is if there is anything beyond what Kristen went over at the IEC Safety Forum in January, or I think it was the January meeting. The safety committee did a forum on the top 10 OSHA violations, or that they saw in 2022. And I don't know, Kristen, if that's something that you have access to. I was just looking at it to see if I could put it in the chat. But we definitely, when we send out the notes from this forum, can include what we listed in the safety forum that we did in January. But I'm just wondering if there are any specific OSHA questions. Feel free to unmute if you are on the call. To ask questions that that you might have top of mind, or clarity around. Kristen mentioned the documentation. That might be something that we need to be more keen on. One of the things I recall from January was, and you mentioned, Kristen, you mentioned confined space. And that's something that I understand there's going to be quite a bit more attention around trenching and confined space. And there was even discussion that, doing like drive-by inspections were going to be happening. So, like unannounced sort of things. So just wanted to see if, anybody had anything specific to the OSHA topic before Kristen moves on.
And that's a really good point, Marilyn, is that, we've seen that in trenching for a lot of years, about the increased focus, OSHA issuing willful violations when it's really serious. I'm dealing with one now that they issued a willful on a fatality. So then we get concerned about criminal charges. It's not the one you may have seen in the post where they issued criminal charges in the mountains. But this is one where he told the guy to get out of the trench. And so when I was on the phone with Amanda, I said, why is this willful? I said, he told him to get out. He turned around, the guy stepped down into it, and then it collapsed on him. So I was like, that's not willful. I was like that. That's not even close. So it's interesting. And she didn't respond to that. I think she recognized like they're getting pressure to issue these as willful. And we've seen that for a lot of years. So, and a good point with confined space, we had the awful Cabin Creek Excel accident, probably 15 years ago now. And that's always led to confined space being heightened focus out in this area. I've got a confined space inspection going on right now in Texas, and it was, kind of minor injuries. They actually were kind of treated for, they were an exposure, and we had 2 inspectors show up the next day, the area director calling. I mean, it's just been interesting the way they've responded to it when we saw it as a pretty minor incident. So I think you're right. We're going to see a lot more increased inspections, and they wanted to show up the night of. And we said, well, we're not, everyone's going home, so we'll see you in the morning. So it's, I think you're right. We're going to see both those areas increase for sure.
Yeah. We had a couple of people join. I just wanted to give those folks that have joined an update that Kristen White is talking about OSHA standards and enforcement and some new things coming up for 2023, but we wanted to open it up to any questions that people might have about OSHA. It doesn't look like anyone has unmuted, Kristen, so I would say to move on for additional information.
Okay, I was pulling up here here we go. I was pulling that up for because I know fall protection is always number 1 for the top 10 list. That tends to always be the top of list. Right. I was pulling up the others we had here. So HAZCOM. So, HAZCOM to me is such low-hanging fruit for OSHA, because what they'll do is ask your guys, do you have the, SDS sheets, the safety data sheets? Have you seen these? Have you ever been trained? And when I say chemicals on a work site, that can be cleaning materials, that can be anything. So that's really low-hanging fruit. So just keep that in mind, making sure that you've got a written program, right? Not just the SDS sheets with the chemicals you're using, but you have a full written program, because they cite employers for that all the time. Respiratory protection. So making sure if you've got a mandatory or voluntary program, we see that one a lot. I think that's why it's cited a lot. So if you only have a voluntary respiratory protection program, did everybody sign Appendix D acknowledging it's voluntary, right? That's an easy one for OSHA to get you on, because you're thinking it's voluntary, I don't need much, but you still need that Appendix D. Looking here, ladders, scaffolding, lockout, tag out, forklifts and lift trucks. Usually those are training issues, right? Not having training documentation. Fall protection training. So not just the falls, PPE, and then machine guarding. So yeah, it's interesting, Marilyn, like these will kind of move around, on the list, but these are always your top 10. So, if you're thinking about, from a safety perspective, doing audits of your work site and you're wondering where to start, that top 10 list is the best place to start. Pull up that list and audit your sites for it, because that's really what OSHA does. I mean, especially on a construction site, this top 10 list is always first, top of mind for them. And that's what they're looking for first. Even if you have an accident or something, these are the other issues that they're looking at. So when you're doing your own audits, audit to that list. That'll help you.
Kristen, if I could interrupt here, one of the things I was going to talk about later, and I still will bring it up at the end, but we have opened our annual Summit Award nominations, and one of the recognitions that we give, and we've modified this in the last couple of years, so I want to make sure that people really understand what we're doing now. We're sending out a safety assessment. So it's not a nomination for a safety award. It is truly an assessment for you to fill out as an electrical contractor or as an industry partner. Even you can go through this assessment. And it is the same assessment that the IEC National Office uses for their safety recognition awards. We're encouraging all of our companies, whether they complete it and submit it to us for recognition or not, we want all of our member companies to go through the safety assessment this year. We do really want in 2023 to make sure that we're giving you what you need, particularly for some of our smaller companies that might not have a whole safety training, safety department, or safety manager. We want to make sure that you have the information that you need, and starting by having this assessment. So I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but it's an appropriate time to mention, Kristen, that it's something that it's a resource for you as a member to be able to fill this out. And we ask that it be done annually.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Because then, if you're if you're not thinking about auditing, it makes you think about it, right? And what you need to do.
Exactly. Well, in the top 10, even that, even though the 10 stays the same and it moves around, just looking at it annually is a good exercise as a reminder of, so that you don't get complacent about any particular aspect of what's important out there.
Especially when you're doing it all the time. And right. I mean, that's when we see it the most, is it's that task you're doing every day. The last one I was going to mention, kind of from an increased enforcement, and we've talked about this for a while, is the number of new inspectors that we're seeing. We're still seeing a lot of new inspectors. OSHA's really been in hiring mode over the last year. I had one inspection that we actually went through 2 inspectors because they both quit. So I was like, I don't think it was our fault. But just keep that in mind. It is difficult sometimes dealing with a new inspector because they have their checklist, right? So an experienced inspector kind of knows, okay, I'm an electrical site, here's what I need to focus on. New inspectors don't, right? They're kind of going down the checklist. They feel, they have to check all the boxes. Many times they have an assistant area director with them, going to the site, kind of helping them. So just keep that in mind that, you may see new faces and new people that are not familiar with your industry. So we see that, especially in electrical, you may get an inspector who's never been on a construction site, never dealt with electrical hazards. And, they're going to look at a scaffold and be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe your guys are up there. That, it immediately looks dangerous to them, just not knowing what the rules are. So, just keep that in mind, that you may be, having a little more patience, I guess, with people that don't quite understand your business and don't react when they immediately think something looks unsafe. But that's everything I had from the safety side, Marilyn. So yeah, if you had other things on the safety topic from the employment side, the 2 big issues we're still seeing right now, I would say, is, the family, everyone kind of adjusting, getting that in their handbooks. We've talked about that. And then kind of the wage issues, right? So we're seeing a lot of kind of wage demands, paid sick leave demands. I mean, employees know the mandatory paid sick leave in Colorado, right? They know what it is. It's interesting because I write a lot of articles for employers. I actually get emailed by employees sometimes saying, my employer is not giving me my paid sick leave. And I refer those on. We don't take cases from the employee side, but I see those a lot. So employees are aware of their paid sick leave rights and their wage rights and, when they should be paid. And so, just keep that in mind, when you're looking at benefits and paying wages, that employees are a lot more knowledgeable, I would say, than they used to be, of keeping employers following those rules.
Awesome. Does anyone on the call have any questions about the implementation of family to this point? And in addition to family is now the payroll deductions for Secure, for the Secure Act. So if there's any questions that anybody has related to labor and employment or other labor and employment topics that are top of mind or of concern to you, this is now a good time to either ask Kristen or just to say, hey, this is something I'd like to learn more about so that we can plan additional member forum topics for 2023.
And Marilyn, I'll add one thing when people are thinking about their questions on secure savings. So if you are an employer with 50 or more employees, the registration deadline is March 15th. So this is all Colorado employers by law are required to facilitate secure savings if they don't offer a retirement plan for their employees. So there's rolling deadlines. So 50 or more employees is March 15th. Employers with 15 to 49 is May 15th. And employers with 5 to 14 is June 30th. So those are your registration deadlines to get registered for Colorado Secure Savings. They said you'll be notified when it's time to register, but I would go ahead and calendar those deadlines. But yeah, so you're required, like Marilyn was saying, to do those deductions. It's not an employer deduction. It's an employee deduction if they want to contribute essentially to the state-run IRA program if you don't offer a retirement plan for your employees. And my understanding is for the employees, it's an opt-out program. Right? So they are opted in when they are hired and they must opt out.
We have a very quiet group this morning. We're answering all their top of mind questions. Well, if you want to hang on with us for just a few minutes,
Absolutely.
Kristen will be on. I wanted to talk a little bit about what's coming up for 2023. Switching gears a little bit, just to talk internally about some things that are happening and member benefits that I want to make sure that you are using in 2023. The first thing that we have coming up from an event perspective, well, I'm going to stop and say the Summit Award nominations are open. We have some new recognition awards this year. If you have not ever submitted for a Summit Award, I encourage you to do so. We recognize individuals, we recognize projects and companies for the work that they've done. And we only know about that really great work if you tell us your story. It is a very easy nomination process. And we provide that link to share with you. But think about the residential, commercial, industrial, solar, EV, innovation work. Think about your star employees, your project managers, superintendents, or even the person that delivers products to the job site. There are all kinds of ways that we are recognizing individuals and projects in the industry, and we would love to have your participation in submitting the nomination. They are due March 15th. And like I said, nominations are open now. Very simple form for you to fill out. We are now using the same platform that IEC National is using. So if you submit for a local award, we've made it even easier to then transfer and submit a national award. And the big news is that if you submit a nomination and you win, you will for sure be recognized as a nominee, but if you win, you get to accept it at our Summit Awards celebration on April 20th at Empower Field. We're doing a very, very cool Summit Awards presentation at the Denver Broncos Stadium. So even if the Broncos aren't winning, you are. So we encourage you, you'll see that information coming out. You might get a call about the nomination and registration. You'll also be seeing additional communication from us to not only submit a nomination, but be there to recognize excellence in the industry on April 20th at Empower Field. Another special thing that we are doing for the Summit Awards this year, because of where we're going to be, we have some behind the scenes safety tours planned that you can register for when you register for dinner. That's a little bit more limited, so we won't be able to have everybody that's at dinner do the tour, but that's something special that we have going on. We're about to kick off event season. January gives us a little bit of time to plan for the year. Coming up on February 23rd, we are doing a general contractor forum with our contractor members. We are very, very close to capacity. So check your emails today if you haven't already registered. You should be getting you should have an email. And if you don't have an email, let us know. And we'll get you the registration information. It will be at Satire Brewing in Thornton, and we have a wonderful panel of general contractors coming to talk to our electrical contractors about construction in 2023, about their economic outlook, and to be part of a panel for Q&A for questions that you might have about working with GCs in Colorado. So we encourage you to come to that on February 23rd. Then the other big date that I want to share beyond April 20th is that on May 5th is our annual wire-off. So we have 40 competitors, 40 apprentices that will be competing in a skills competition, 10 from each of the 4 years. And we always really want our wire-off competitors to have their companies represented and watch them compete. We want all of our contractors and industry partners to come and support these top 40 individuals, again, 10 from each year. So this year, as a way to get you to come, if you have a classic car, a hot rod, a sports car, a project car, a fancy motorcycle, an off-road vehicle, whatever it is that you have that is your project to highlight, or is your passion to highlight, we're going to be doing a car show on May the 5th from 3 to 6 p.m. So dust off what's in your garage, or prepare to have it shined up, and join us on May 5th for a car show and to watch these wire-off competitors. It will be a great networking event for the industry. The first Saturday in June, for those of you that have apprentices that are graduating this year, the first Saturday in June at 9 o'clock is our graduation ceremony. We'll be back at the Westin again this year in the ballroom. We're probably the last year of being able to fit into that space without looking for a bigger location. But that is the first Saturday of June. We have our clay shoot coming up the middle of June, and our golf tournament coming up on August the 31st. These are all things that you'll start to see on your calendars, but I just want to give you a heads up that we want to see you out and about in 2023. And these are some top of mind things I wanted to share with you that are coming up and are happening. We will continue to do these member forums on a monthly basis, and give you content that is relevant for doing business. And if you have something that is a business challenge for you, it is 100% likely that someone else has the same business challenge. And we want to be able to provide those value-added services and content to you to help you not only get your apprentices through the program, not only focus on the workforce development that we do and outreach across the state and community to bring people into the industry, but we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help support your business challenges and your business needs and your growth plans. Which leads me to the final piece of it is continuing education, professional development renewal. So if you are a licensed electrician or have one who is employed, this is the year for them to get their 24 hours of credit if they haven't already. IEC has the most number of, has the most diverse and the largest number of qualified CEU offerings in the state of Colorado through DORA. So we encourage you to reach out to us. We can come to do a custom class for you if there's something specific that you want to do. And then we also have a rolling, ongoing series of professional development that we do. You can take it in person here, you can take it live online with an instructor, and you can even take it self-paced. So there's 3 different ways based on your preferential learning style that you can get your credits this year. Those were some of the big highlights that I wanted to share with you. Does anybody have any questions? DORA is taking up to 6 months to get licenses. I did not know that, but that is something that I can make a phone call about today and ask them what is happening in that is causing a delay. I'm copying this right now, and I will send a note to our contact at DORA to see what I can find out. Thank you for raising that as a question. This is a perfect example of if I don't know, I can't help you solve the challenge, but that is what we do with our legislative relationships, with our regulatory relationships with the Department of Labor, both federally and state, with DORA, with the Department of Education and the other entities that we work with. Bringing something to our attention helps us address it for everyone. So thank you for that question. Are there others? This is Wednesday, it's not Monday. Everybody should be all chatty by now, midweek. I know you have 1,000,001 things happening, and I appreciate and respect that. All right, any other questions for the chat? If you don't want to unmute. Oh, thank you. One other thing that we do have, well, 2 other things. We have a member lunch coming up on Wednesday, February 15th. This is the IECRM Loves Its Members Valentine's Day lunch. But really it is an opportunity for you to network, be together. And we have a very, very important topic on February 15th on cybersecurity. And Kristen, I don't know if this is something that you cover within Fisher Phillips, but we have been in, well, first of all, we've seen in our own emails, quite a bit of very creative phishing. We do training internally on a regular basis about what to look for and what not to do. But this is catching people. Our scammers are getting even more and more sophisticated through text messaging and emails and other outreach. But the topic is on cybersecurity. There are both new state laws as well as new federal laws impacting the providers that are supporting your security efforts, as well as responsibilities on breaches that might happen if an employer is responsible for the breach of data for a customer, client, or employee. And so we have Rick Race from ARCOM coming to talk to us about these new cybersecurity challenges and what you need to be doing as an employer related to these new laws. So Kristen, again, I don't know if that's something at all that is in your wheelhouse or coverage, but this is going to be a very important topic. We've already had a meeting about it. We've already made some adjustments internally with ourselves. We'll be doing additional internal training as well as sharing this with you, our members. And then I know that Rick would be happy to come out and speak with your companies following the lunch to help you support this message throughout your organization.
No, that's great. I personally do not wade into that area. We do have a data privacy group that they do that. And and it's kind of the same thing like you're saying, there's obligations if the employer causes the breach, there's obligations once you find out a breach, depending on how much personal information was leaked or, sent out by email. So yeah, we do have people that help employers address that, when it happens and try to, help them get their plans in place ahead of time. But a lot of times these consultants are great because they're the ones, doing kind of that tech side that we don't do. We're doing more of that legal side. So
right.
I'm bummed I'm going to be gone next week. So for work, otherwise I would attend because that'll be great.
Let's make sure we invite the data privacy team from Fisher Phillips. If they're available to attend, that would be great. Okay. Or we can use that as a follow-up. And to that point, what we're really going to be hearing more about is the prevention. Many of us have cybersecurity policies in our general liability insurance. Some of us have cybersecurity, extra policies on top, but even those policies are changing. And so even if you feel comfortable that, I got that covered, if something were to happen, if the zombie takeover happens or whatever the person is that, comes and takes away your screen, there are even challenges and changes there. And so we just want everybody to be as up to date as possible. But we invite you to come for lunch, noon to 1:30 on February 15th. There's no charge. This is a member benefit that we provide on a quarterly basis. To bring everybody together in person. So lots happening. Like I said, it's about to be the kickoff to event season, and there's something for everybody, and we want you all to participate. And I really want to know what your cars are, because I know our industry is full of project cars and classic cars and specialty vehicles, so I want to see them on May 5th. With that, if there are no other questions, I think that we can... let's see. We're still having problems getting materials and quality employees in this still statewide. Is this still statewide across the whole country? Yes. So I think that some supply chain issues have gotten better, but there probably are still some challenges in some particular areas. And I don't know if there's anybody on the call that wants to address specifically what those are, but we've seen improvements in some areas. We've seen not much change in others. It truly is, even those that have ramped up manufacturing are just now starting to get things off of their manufacturing line. One of the things, we were just at the IEC National Business Summit in Nashville last week, and one of the things that we heard from from both the manufacturers and the distributors is that things are getting manufactured, and when they might have been bundled and sent to the distributor for then release to the end user, what's happening now is as soon as it's rolling off the manufacturing line, if it's 1 or if it's 50, it's going to the distributor, and now the distributor is having to figure out the pieces and parts of getting orders out. You might have ordered 50, but they're coming one at a time, for example. And so I do know that that is still somewhat of an issue. And then the quality employees piece is something I did not say, but we have a number of career fairs coming up. We've really stepped up our outreach to reach out to high schools and other young people that might be interested in entering the industry. And I know I was looking at our own IEC Facebook page last night, and we follow, if you have a Facebook page, we try to follow you either on LinkedIn or on Facebook. And I've noticed quite a number of our contractors looking for journey workers. So, we just need to continue to bring people into the industry and get them prepared so that they can get through licensure. And Jerry, hearing this question that even those that are ready to be licensed, there's a delay, we need to fix that. That we need to definitely hear from Dora why there is a delay, because you need that person licensed yesterday, not in 6 months. So you need them licensed in 6 months, but the ones that are ready today, we need to be able to get them licensed. Career fairs are coming up on April 27th, June 29th, and September 7th. Participation in the career fairs is free to our electrical contractor members. We do them in person here, and we promote them heavily. So we're making the investment in partnering with other organizations and in paying for the advertising and outreach for the career fairs to bring those potential candidates into the organization. So, April 27th, June 29th, and September 7th. We also in the chat, and again, we'll put all of this information out in our summary that goes out, but we also have a job posting site. So if you have a job if you have an opening, we will post those positions for you. Remember that with new job postings, salary ranges or hourly wage ranges have to be included in the job posting. So we're going to want to make sure that you're following what the new state guidelines are, but we will post those. You just have to email them to us via the website. That link is here. We'll post the jobs. You get to say how long you want the job posted for on the website. And remember also that we maintain a hire list. I do know that we have some interested candidates that would be first years, new to the industry, on the hire list right now. So make sure that you're reaching out to Terry Reynolds in our office, and Terry can provide that hire list. We're in the process of putting it onto Flashpoint so that you'll be able to pull it directly yourself without Terry emailing it to you. But we want to make sure that we keep it password protected for access. It looks like we've had a list of utility transformers, switchgear, meter stacks. Yeah, this is the transformers and switchgear, I think, still are on that 18 months to 2 years out delay. Is that accurate? Mm-hmm. I have an industry partner who's joined me in the background, and he said that is in fact still the case. And I think this is a great question to ask general contractors at the GC forum in February, is how are general contractors working with their project expectations, knowing that there are supply chain challenges, not just in the electrical industry, but across the board. I think that's going to be a great question to ask them, and hear how they're helping to support that. Did I say anything that raised any additional questions for you? All right. Well, I hope to see you on the 15th, the 23rd. I hope to see your Summit Awards submission in the middle of March. And I hope to see you all at the Summit Awards at Empower Field. It is going to be a fabulous, great event For any of you that came to the State of the Industry dinner, you know how spectacular that was in a new venue, and we are super excited to be able to give out our awards over dinner at the stadium this year. With that, we'll look forward to seeing you in March for the member forum, and have a wonderful rest of your week, and look for this summary to come out very soon. Have a great day, everyone. Kristen, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you all. Have a good day.